Enforcing a stay-at-home order in Tucson while keeping officers protected from the coronavirus.
Martial law has not been declared. There's nothing like that happening.
Plus, education leaders on the learning shortfall students face as instruction goes online.
I think this will be a big wake-up call for our state to really recognize and really have data on the digital divide.
Ensuring crucial information and services about the pandemic reaches Arizona's Spanish-speaking communities.
This lady at the end, she was just like, you know, God bless you. I'm so glad you called.
Hello and welcome to Arizona 360. I'm Lorraine Rivera. Thanks for joining us. This week, Arizona enacted more restrictions in its response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Governor Doug Ducey announced a statewide stay-at-home order to slow the spread of the disease. Now until April 30th, the stay-at-home order calls on Arizonans to limit their time away from home and leave only for work or services at places deemed essential. That includes a wide range of businesses, from grocery stores and pharmacies to golf courses, a sticking point for some, like Tucson Mayor Regina Romero, who has urged the governor to narrow down the list of essential services. Her own proclamation strongly advises some of these businesses to close anyway, but stops short of forcing them. Also under the governor's order, people out and about don't have to prove where they're going, and they can still go outdoors as long as they stay 6 feet apart from others. Distancing rules also apply to businesses. Define the order is a Class 1 misdemeanor. We learn more about what the enforcement looks like in the city of Tucson from Police Chief Chris Magnus. Our discussion began with precautions officers are taking during the pandemic. You've got a city of about 500,000, 850 officers or so. What's different in your department given the new stay-at-home orders?
Well, we are still doing our best to be responsive to calls for service, albeit we're trying to put a priority on some of the more serious calls and asking people to use the web-based reporting tool that we have online, or to call our non-emergency number if they are reporting something that's a little less serious. And we're getting a good cooperation with that. So, in terms of responding to crimes, not a lot has changed. That's still going on as expected. I think things feel different, though, out there. And one of our concerns is obviously keeping our officers safe and healthy going forward. We're doing things, we're practicing our own version of social distancing. You'll obviously see officers wearing masks and other protective equipment more often. We're asking people sometimes to step out of their homes when we take complaints from them, so we have a little more fresh air.
Do your officers have the proper equipment? Is it a mandate at this point that they wear it, or a recommendation?
They do have the equipment, but I'll put a caveat on that, just because the masks are something that, we have probably at this point, give or take a 2 weeks supply going forward of masks, depending on how often they're used. And they're not used all the time. We try to reserve them more for situations where, the person who's called us is ill, has symptoms of COVID-19. They're getting quizzed a little bit about that. When you call 911, you're going to be asked some of those questions. So depending on the condition of the person, is sort of involves whether we're wearing a mask or not. But I am concerned that, within the next 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to be out of masks.
Is it fair to say you've placed orders or you've asked for additional equipment in the weeks ahead?
Oh, yeah. No, it's very fair to say that. Trust me, we are about as creative as we can get. We're part of a city emergency operations center. We have an incident command structure. Those folks are working, harder than you can possibly imagine. We have people even standing in line at businesses where we think there might be available masks coming online. We're waiting for additional shipments. But look, let me put it this way. We asked for 80,000 masks from the last strategic shipment that was coming from the federal government through the state. Out of that, we got 80. I think that's about 1%. I mean, and this is because they have to be shared. I mean, we're not the only department that needs these, but the challenge is we go through them very quickly. It's not something you can just wear all day long.
Let's get back to the orders. People could be cited for a misdemeanor. What sort of behavior or activity would actually prompt your officers to cite people?
So really, we see this as a health issue, not a criminal justice or legal issue. Our goal is not to go out there and cite a bunch of people or take anybody to jail. Our plan, and this is what we've already been doing, is to talk to people, to try to gain their cooperation, to try to get them to understand that not only are they compromising their own health and safety, but they're also could do real harm to other people. I think by and large, so far, we have gotten good cooperation for that. We've had a couple of examples of house parties, younger people that seem to, I guess, feel like a lot of young people do, that they're invincible. They're not. We try to remind them that they can really do harm to others. But frankly, if they don't want to be responsive, or if anybody doesn't want to be responsive to those requests, our last resort would be to write a citation. And we're willing to do that if necessary.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't get to that. You've been in law enforcement for some time. These are very uncertain times that will cause stress to a lot of families. Are you preparing your officers for maybe more response to domestic incidents?
We've already seen that. There have been more domestics. Let's face it, it is stressful when you're cooped up in a house, even if it's with people that you normally get along with. I think tensions run high. This isn't a stay indoors order. It's really to be smart about how you engage with other people. You can still go to the grocery store, go to a doctor's appointment. There's a range of things that are allowed. You're not going to get pulled over. Nobody has to carry a paper that says you're going to an essential service. I know there have been a lot of rumors and things about that. Martial law has not been declared. There's nothing like that happening.
Finally, what is your message to people who just want to get out of the house and they'll interact with your officers?
We're asking folks to exercise patience, common sense, consideration for others, check on people. You could do it without going into their house, even knocking on a window of an elderly neighbor or giving them a phone call to make sure they're okay. So, be creative, but be smart. And I think we can all get through this together.
All right. Tucson Police Chief Chris Magnus with some good thoughts with or without a pandemic. Thank you.
You bet. Take care.
Arizona's stay-at-home order followed a decision to extend distance learning through the rest of the academic year, all in an effort to prevent the virus from spreading on campuses. But schools chief Kathy Hoffman acknowledges that learning from home disadvantages a number of families because they simply don't have the technology. We asked her more about how the state plans to address those challenges. Let's begin with something that a lot of parents have been wondering. Why not just end the school year now? Why offer the digital learning through the remainder of the school year?
Well, I think that, in speaking with our school leaders across the state, right now that distance learning looks very different from community to community. And we did want to also make sure that we were ensuring continuity of pay for our educators and all of the school staff, and in ways where they could continue to support our families by providing services. So, of course, instruction is one part of what the school communities are responsible for, or a big part. But right now, our schools are also playing a big role in delivering meals, making sure that kids have access to food and nutritional assistance that they need. They're also continuing to provide special education services wherever possible. So we didn't want to have any kind of state mandate of closing schools. We wanted schools to continue providing the services in the way that they thought were best for their communities.
There are some communities that will be at higher risk of not being able to fully support students. Technically, are you deploying any additional assets or resources to those places?
That's a huge issue right now in Arizona. I think this will be a big wake-up call for our state to really recognize and really have data on the digital divide and the access to technology, both access to internet and Wi-Fi, as well as having computers at home. This is going to continue to be a huge issue for us. So what we have done in the short term is we have provided recommendations to schools on how they could use federal funding that they already have to buy technology, to make those purchases. The issue right now is that since the entire country has shifted to online, our businesses, as our agencies, everybody is shifting to telecommuting, as well as our schools. So right now, all of the laptops and hotspots are on back order. So even with the funding available, and we will be receiving a roughly, we estimate around $277 million for education from the new federal stimulus package. Even with that new incoming funding source, right now everything's on back order. So there's going to be a lot of obstacles to overcome. I've called on our business community to help support with this. Initially, I asked, do you even have laptops that we could donate or loan to our schools? Is there anything we can do in the short term? Does anybody have any extra laptops? And they don't, because all of their employees have been shifting to telecommuting during this time. And so we're looking at even some creative ways. The business community has been stepping up. And one business leader suggested, what if we can refurbish old laptops and donate those to school? So we're looking for those types of creative solutions, but this is going to be a long-term issue.
You mentioned in a recent press conference that there are 100,000 or so families who will be negatively impacted by this. There are 1 million students in K-12 Arizona education. Moving forward, short term, what are some things to make this right?
And yeah, so the number I mentioned, the 100,000, that's just with the data we've collected. We have not received responses from all of our schools across the state. So that's only a portion of the state that's been impacted. So for example, I reached out to various districts and counties, and for Yavapai County alone, they indicated a need of 21,000 laptops. And there's also a divide in terms of there's also a gap in training for our teachers. Not every teacher in Arizona has been trained or has the skills to immediately transition to online teaching and to use those online platforms. Or even some of our educators don't have access to the technology they need at home. So this issue is multi-layered and complex, and we're trying to address each piece.
As this continues, what sorts of things should families be considering, given that for many, they may not see their teacher or their classmate again anytime soon?
I think this is a very emotionally challenging time for all of our kids, for all of our school communities. And so I would encourage families to give kids opportunities to call a friend, to use the phones, to use any technology you can to stay connected with peers and teachers. I know some teachers have organized parades where they drive in their cars and drive around the neighborhood so they can just wave to their students. So I think those are some creative ways to stay connected.
Okay, Superintendent Kathy Hoffman joining us from Phoenix. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hoffman says families and educators should visit azed.gov to stay up to date on available resources. In the meantime, Southern Arizona's largest school district is taking steps to bridge its digital divide. We learn more from Tucson Unified School District Superintendent Gabriel Trujillo.
We've approved the funding package to our governing board of $3.5 million to purchase and deploy Chromebook laptops to the 15,000 families right now that don't have anything. So we are in the process of finalizing that purchase and finalizing that deployment. In the interim, we do have a learn from home portal that probably half the district is able to get on and comfortably navigate because half of our district does have have the resources in the home, the internet access and the devices. So they're able to get on there and interface directly with their teachers and engage and utilize educational content. I think the problem right now is we're losing time every day that goes by with the segment of the district that doesn't have that access. Yeah. So we've expedited that purchase in recognition of the fact that there are families right now that are falling through those cracks. We've developed an offline option of student workbooks that have really easy to navigate educational activities for reading and writing. We've got some student consumable workbooks that will be deployed next week. We also, for our 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, we have some offline activities for math and for English language arts that have been developed by one of our vendors that will be available to families. We'll be able to send them out next week. That's just a short-term plan until we can get the devices deployed directly into the homes.
Next week, your school board will meet to talk about the grading policy. What do you hope comes out of that? How would this be ideal for you?
Well, the ideal situation for us will be for our governing board to approve a grading policy that essentially just allows us to make promotion decisions and semester grading decisions based off of where kids' final grades were for the third quarter. That's when we went into spring break, and that's when closure started. And then we're also looking at an additive model. Any work that students complete will be work that is eligible to improve a student's grade, not necessarily harm it. So it's that incentive to motivate that high school freshman that already has a C in all of his or her classes, get online and make that C a B. Because we also know that we're going to be competing with Netflix and the internet and social media. So we've got to have that grade increase to be able to motivate young people to get on there and engage with their teachers.
Superintendent, I don't want to sound sensational here, but for some students, you know, this has been tragic. They were on spring break, they said goodbye on a Friday, and that was it. No further communication with teacher or fellow classmates. Socially, emotionally, this is going to be something that they'll have to figure out how to handle in the months ahead. Do you see any way of sort of making this right?
You know, Lorraine, it's not sensational because I've said now quite a few times that my heart absolutely just breaks for one grade level in particular that this hits the hardest, and that's our 12th graders. They have been with Tucson Unified, the grand majority of them, since kindergarten. This spring semester has been everything that they've been dreaming about since they first stepped foot in school. It's that senior prom. It's my final season. It's my final time pitching in my final baseball game. It's my final performance in the spring play. It's that time to say goodbye to all of my friends, and it's been taken from them. It's dreaming about graduation, walking across that stage, and this worldwide pandemic that nobody asked for, this virus that's nowhere and everywhere at the same time, that has everybody staying at home, has essentially robbed them of their senior year. I'm hanging on to hope. I'm keeping the graduation date the same, which is May 21st, because it's almost 2 months away. And I'm going to hope against hope that with all of these restrictive measures that Mayor Romero has implemented, that Governor Ducey have implemented, that maybe, just maybe against hope, things change in the next 7 or 8 weeks, and we're still able to hold graduation. And if need be, we'll postpone. Maybe we'll do it in June. But cancellation's off the table for me, because I think if this is the one thing that we can give them, I do think that we owe it to them.
Yeah, a life lesson that's not really built into the curriculum thus far.
No, it's not. It's not.
Okay, Dr. Gabe Trujillo, thank you for your time.
Thank you very, very much, and stay safe, stay well.
Nearly a third of Arizonans speak a language other than English at home, but coronavirus resources have been slow to come out in Spanish, the state's second most common language. AZPM reporter Elisa Resnick looked at how community organizations are finding ways to meet the need.
I know that there's been a lot of young people that have been reaching out to us, trying to really understand very complicated terms like social distancing and trying to translate that into their parents, like on the spot.
Reina Montoya leads an immigrant aid group in Mesa called Aliento. She says that role is something many young immigrants like her are used to filling.
Unfortunately, that's something that we had to navigate. I remember being very little when I first migrated to the United States here in Arizona and having to translate very complicated information to my parents.
Aliento posts bilingual updates and live Q&As on social media. Community radio stations and Spanish news channels have also helped fill that gap. But Montoya says the absence of bilingual information turns many elders to other, less reliable sources.
And something that we have been witnessing is that the president of Mexico was blasting on Facebook and on Twitter saying to hack each other. There was a video that went viral, and that's really impacting how our parents and how our community or the older population, it's really seeing that because of the lack of information coming from Arizona in their own language.
In Arizona, state and local officials are stepping up their messaging in Spanish.
Buenas tardes, Tucson. Soy la alcaldesa Regina Romero.
But questions about COVID-19 go beyond health updates.
I have to tell you that I've been ordering takeout for my best, like mama and pop's restaurants that tend to be a lot of like small Mexican restaurants, and they're terrified because they think that they're going to have to fire their whole employees, and they don't know what they're going to do if they're going to go out of businesses. So I saw that the Department of Commerce, specifically here in Arizona, came up with different ways that small businesses can apply for loans in these times of reliefs, but I have not seen these materials in Spanish.
Reaching some of Arizona's Spanish-speaking communities can be difficult even in normal times. Dr. Cecilio Rosales leads a team that conducts mobile health screenings for Spanish-speaking communities in the state.
We were going out on a regular basis with staff and students out into the community, literally to do basic screenings, whether it was in partnership with an organization, a nonprofit, non-governmental organization, or literally parking our mobile unit in a park within a neighborhood, or even on the side of the street.
Rosales says they often serve low-income, mixed immigration status, or uninsured families who don't think they have many health options. Her team connects them with resources.
We have this federally qualified community health center network across the nation, and that's a safety net for folks that don't have medical insurance.
Knowing where to go for health answers is especially important now. That's why Rosales' team is calling some 14,000 Arizonans previously screened in the mobile health units. One of those workers is Alma Ramirez in Phoenix. She typically calls people to follow up after visiting their communities. Now, she makes calls to answer questions about COVID-19.
There's more sense of urgency with everyone. And so this lady at the end, she was just like, God bless you. I'm so glad you called. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do.
Ramirez says many people already have pre-existing conditions like high blood pressure or diabetes. Her call is sometimes their first chance to hear about healthcare changes in a language they can understand.
This is mi gente. I know that there's only like 6 of us working, doing these calls, and we can't reach everybody.
But to Ramirez, it's their job to try. She says, especially when Spanish material from health officials falls short, communities are coming together to support each other.
They'll say, this is what I'm looking for. And we'll get 50, 60 messages, responses. I see milk here. I can give you a gallon of water. I can give you some milk. I can give you, you know what I'm saying? And it's beautiful. And people forget that.
The Pima County Board of Supervisors grappled with a new reality this week as the unexpected death of Chairman Richard Elías set in. Elías died last weekend, reportedly in his sleep. He was 61. His service on the Board of Supervisors began in 2002 with an appointment to replace Raul Grijalva after the then newly elected congressman left for D.C. Elias's District 5 seat is up for election, but in the interim, the county will appoint a replacement. We got insight into that process from Arizona Daily Star columnist Tim Steller.
The state law sets out that the Board of Supervisors appoints a replacement to serve out his term. It doesn't set out a process, it just says the Board of Supervisors does it. If the supervisors have trouble, if they tie, for example, in deciding whom to choose, the clerk of the Board of Supervisors casts a tie-breaking vote. In the longer term, Richard Elías was going to be running for re-election. His wife has withdrawn his papers to run for election, so he will not be on the ballot. Others are trying to, at the last minute, gather as many signatures as they can to be on the primary ballot, but it's unclear how many will actually be able to do that.
How do you collect signatures given there's a statewide stay-at-home order?
It's a really difficult proposition. Of course, people aren't going to be friendly in most cases to candidates who come and knock on doors because nobody wants to get close to each other. And of course, you don't want to handle the pen and all that sort of thing. This does favor probably candidates who have a political apparatus they can lean on. I'm thinking here of Adelita Grijalva. She's had some drive-up opportunities to gather signatures so that petition signers can simply, stay in their car even.
There is a possibility for the board to actually just name a replacement in the interim. Is that correct?
On April 7th, at the board meeting, they are scheduled to discuss how to proceed. The new chair of the Board of Supervisors is Ramon Valadez. He was vice chair. Richard Elías was chair. Ramon Valadez told me that he wants to name somebody who will be, for lack of a better word, a caretaker, somebody who will not be seeking the office in the election. So there's a possibility that that's what they will do. However, I'm sure there will be some desire, perhaps some pressure to appoint Adelita Grijalva to the seat that her father occupied before Richard Elías did. It would be a continuation of the kind of legacy.
If that were to occur, could she continue serving on the Tucson Unified School District Board, or do we even know?
My understanding is that yes, she could, and that she wants to serve in both capacities for some period. It certainly could be difficult over the long run. She also has a job, and so she would have to leave that job if she were to be both a supervisor and a school board member.
And Tim, Supervisor Elías spent nearly 2 decades on the Board of Supervisors. What sort of legacy did he leave behind?
Certainly a legacy as someone, a progressive, someone who was dedicated to labor causes, thinking often about the poor. I'll give you an example. He was the one person on the Board of Supervisors who in recent years wasn't convinced that road conditions are really the top concern for Pima County residents. He was still more concerned with issues of poverty and opportunities, housing, that sort of thing, than he was with road conditions.
Okay, Tim Steller joining us with some insight on the Pima County Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all for now. Thanks for joining us. To get in touch, visit us on social media or send an email to Arizona360@azpm.org and let us know what you think. We'll see you next week.